How's it going, my friends? The other day was pretty exciting, and I'm going to show you why. So, this is my now clean 2008 Saab 9.3 Aero, laser red. Love this car, but I just picked up something incredibly unique. Let's try a harder one. You ready? Nice catch, buddy. So as far as unique vehicles, I'm talking about this absolute unicorn right behind me. This is my 2011 Saab 9.4X. If you, my friends, are not sure what this is, well, it is GM and Saab's last gasp of air before GM totally obliterated and ran and demolished Saab into bankruptcy. Now, a lot of people will sit here and say that is not a true Saab model, which I wholeheartedly agree. It is not a Saab of the yesteryears. It's nothing compared to the Saab 96, the 900s, the Sonnets, and so on and so forth. However, to me, it wears a Saab badge. It is unique, and that is, you know, along with the quirkiness, what makes a Saab. So eventually, whether it be in this video or the next one or the series, you will see that this does in fact share some GM parts. Shocking, I know, that GM badge shared and all of that stuff between models. So yes, there are parts that are actually pretty common and other stuff that is pretty darn hard to come by for these 9.4Xs. Now, what makes them incredibly unique is just simply the numbers. They made around 800 of these between 2011 and 2012, majority being in 2011. Supposedly a couple in 2012s, but the only ones I've ever seen were 2011s. But anyways, 200 in the Aero trim. And that, my friends, is exactly what this is. A 2011 Saab 9.4X Aero, and I'm the lucky idiot that was able to purchase one of these relatively local to me for cheap. But with that being said, it definitely needs some parts, it needs some work. Right now it's sort of ish running, but not reliably. So I'll quit rambling, I'll flip the camera around and show you exactly why I got this cheap and what we're gonna do to get it back into tip-top shape. So here's the nose of my 9.4X. Now, any of these within a Rust Belt portion of the world, you'll get rock chips and then the hood corrodes from underneath and you get a lot of paint defects. So this one is not unique in that case, but I do have a paint guy that might be able to kind of refurbish this, sand this down to the metal, treat the metal, and then respray part of the nose of it. Now all of this, the random droplets on here, it just rained, and you can actually see that the reflection of the sky and the clouds, and then of course the rain droplets. But the paint is actually in pretty good shape, and that is the premium black metallic paint. And then the nose of these things are pretty standard. The bumper is not unique per se for the 9.4X Aeros. However, what is are these fog lights. Now this particular one, it does have some damage. The previous owner kind of love tapped some other vehicle, so it punched a hole right here, folded it in, and then of course dented it right there. So I don't know if I can salvage this, maybe get some hot water and push this out, make this more pliable once it's heated up. But this I'm not sure. I might be able to push it out, get kind of one of those plastic staple guns from behind, and then from the front kind of do some plastic filler, do some haphazard paint repair, and then slap a Euro plate on it. But of course there's other damage right there. What is more of a disappointment is the fact that this grill, which is absolutely no longer available, is completely broke there, cracked there. So not quite sure what I'm gonna do for that. There's a lot of 9.4Xs that are available that don't even have the original grill because it broke. The headlights, they're a bit hazed, but they have that really awesome blue hue to them. But I definitely should be able to give those a light sand polish and re-clear them with some 2K East wood clear. Exactly what I did on my 9.3. Coming around back, LED taillights, that real big light bar, which you find on the new Gen 9.5s. Mine sort of ish works, but unfortunately is very broken right there. I did find a receipt in the glove box for these taillights being replaced about 5 years ago, $1,500 US. So happy to see those were replaced at some point in the vehicle's life. So apparently the light bar works, but the outside running lights don't. I know whenever I press on the brakes, they actually light up, but I feel like there should be running lights right there. I don't know. I'm gonna have to test this a little bit. For some reason, don't think those taillights, at least the running lights on the outside taillights, are working properly. Has dual exhaust, or at least looks like it. And then here's kind of more of a backed up side profile of this vehicle. So it's pretty cool. It's rather large and spacious as well. So there's some parts laying around, but here are the seats. I don't know if the seats are unique to the Aero model. Now these are heated and ventilated, which is pretty darn cool. We'll go ahead and sit in the passenger seat. It's like 1,000,000 degrees in this car right now. But what's unique about the Aero model is it has this fake carbon fiber that wraps around the dash, and then of course is along the door handles front and rear. Another really awesome feature, which is probably one of my favorites because you spend the most amount of time looking at it, has to be this Aero specific steering wheel. Pretty much identical to the 9.5s, although it is flat bottom and designated with Aero at the bottom. Another really awesome feature are these kind of scuff plates that say Aero. Now not only are they black and chrome, but at night they actually light up green. So I don't know if that was an option or if that was standard on the 9.4X Aero. Going further in depth, we have a very large moonroof, sunroof, whatever you want to call it. Unfortunately mine has some headliner issues. It's sagging, it was taped. Really not sure how I'm gonna remedy this, because I'm feeling like to repair this I'm gonna have to drop the entire headliner, but please comment down below if you have any ideas on how to fix this. This vehicle has 134,600 miles, and I purchased this from the original owner. It does have powerful mirrors, has the power liftgate, which unfortunately doesn't currently work, has all of the auto down and auto up for the windows. And then what's really awesome, push button start here. Yes, it actually does run. Kind of neat that it's kind of modernized, electric parking brake, eco mode, parking sensors. I don't know if all had it, but this particular Aero has front and rear parking sensors. And then you have a comfort and a sport mode, and then you can turn traction control off at the flip of a button. A little cubby, center armrest, you have one button, have a little cubby right there, and then of course press the second button, a bigger cubby that reveals some crud, another 12-volt accessory, a USB, and then an aux, appears to be a 3.5mm jack. One thing I am disappointed about, even though they went hard with the cup holders, 2 at the front and the center, you can use each inner door panel as a cup holder. Of course, in the back, right here, you have 2 additional cup holders, but where's the fun cup holders at? I mean, come on, like you could have incorporated a fun cup holder somewhere. What's really nice that my 9.3 does not have is a backup camera. That was kind of close. Yeah, well, it's some brake work. Now, what is really wrong with this vehicle has to deal with the temperature gauge, or more importantly, the actual engine. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. Start button unfortunately peeled as well, but we'll show you what is wrong with this thing and why I got it so cheap. This might look a little more familiar once we pop off this engine cover. This thing is massive, but here you can see turbo V6 Saab. So here you go. Nearly identical looking B284-esque V6, 2.8 liter V6, and it is not denoted as the B284. However, at least externally it looks identical to it. I'm sure internally they switched some stuff, but as far as like the secondary air injection system, the coils, the valve covers, intake, throttle body, tubing, all of that stuff looks pretty darn spot on, with the exception of my 9.3 has the engine computer back here, just out of frame. The engine computer is much larger, and it sits on the driver's side of this US spec 9.4X. Now, everything else is not quite cleanly, but definitely complete. The intake also looks a bit different than the 9.3. Power steering is in a different spot. At least the reservoir is moved from the passenger side by the firewall up to the passenger side by the headlight. Turbo, unfortunately, I think it is overdue for replacement, and why, at least one of the reasons I got this thing so cheap. So for 134,000 miles, this thing is pretty clean. It has the standard surface rust on different things here, on all of the different pipes, the intake. It's just absolutely filthy. Now underneath the engine bay here, it's for the most part pretty clean. I did notice an exhaust leak, which right there looks like it has a broken exhaust bolt, so I'll need to look at that. Hopefully the flex joint right there is fine and it just needs a bolt, maybe a gasket. I'll assess that, but that's later down the list. Here you can see some weeping of some sort, but I venture to guess this is kind of the lowest point, so it's probably dripping from higher up and then coming down and following the path of least resistance. Yeah, here's what I was talking about. All of this filth. So I don't know if that's oil, coolant, or both, but definitely something is going on, and this thing is leaking coolant pretty bad. Alright, so if you haven't caught my drift, the reason why I got this thing so cheap, not because the front bumper has a couple boo-boos, not because the interior has a couple peeled buttons. No, the reason why I got this thing so cheap is simply because this thing is aggressively leaking coolant. Now, I was very fortunate to purchase this from the original owner. They ended up purchasing this back in 2010 and have literally been the only owner, at least a one-owner family. A couple of the family members have driven this since 2010, but basically the story I got was that the fact that they were driving this recently and it overheated. Now, they could tell it leaked coolant, they were driving it, overheated, and as soon as they saw it peg, they shut it off and flat-towed it. I was also able to get the story from the shop, talk with their service rep, and basically they said the turbo, probably well worn out, it's leaking oil, leaking coolant, valve cover gaskets, leaking oil, possibly a heater hose or a coolant line in the front, maybe the radiator, but it's definitely externally leaking coolant, potentially internally. Once I saw this in person, it fired right up, surprisingly. I thought for sure maybe it would be locked. Now, if you haven't seen my 9.3 Project Aero that I did a couple years ago, that was kind of like the worst case scenario. I purchased that knowing that it was overheated. It didn't start. I did a compression test. Turned out it had a melted piston, scored cylinder wall, and instead of a head gasket repair, we did an engine. Now this change of pace, breath of fresh air, it actually turns over, it fires up, it runs great, but I can physically see it leaking coolant, and hopefully it's not internally leaking as well. Now, it's not getting any smoke whatsoever, not having a milky color oil or coolant or anything like that, so there's no indication at this point in time that it is a head gasket. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and hopefully you, my friends watching this, are praying for me as well. but if I do need to replace an engine, I'm prepared to do so. There is a 9.5 Aero local to me that I can get a replacement 2.8 liter V6, which I believe is the same as this one, and drop it in. But first and foremost, I want to get a coolant pressure tester on this, see where it's externally leaking, fix that, replace the turbo, and kind of go from there. Now I do want a compression test to probably change the plugs. I noticed that the 3 front cylinders, those coil packs have recently been changed. In the glove box I found a receipt for that as well, so that is promising. And that's another thing that gives me faith, knowing that this was a one family owned 94X and that they've only ever taken it to the shop to get repairs, including oil changes, and they have the receipts to prove that. So that gives me a sense of hope that this was well cared for, but of course it definitely needs work. So that is everything in the front, and I'm just realizing I haven't shown you the back. So a really cool option is you walk away from this car, it's got the proximity so it automatically locks. If you get close to it, you don't even have to press unlock. Right now it's locked, and all you have to do is just pull out and it will automatically unlock. So that's pretty cool, along with a very kind of sleek looking key fob. This does have remote start, power lift gate. There's another power lift gate button right there. Like I previously mentioned, the faux carbon fiber, the seat, this I feel like is kind of like a European thing. That kind of extends. Unfortunately, this lower cushion of the driver's side is showing some wear, a lot of scratch marks, and is indented in, but there's no tears or anything like that. I have been told this driver lower seat heater does not work, so ideally I'd like to replace this lower piece, but realistically I'm probably not ever going to find another one. So worst case, I will kind of unupholster this and get a replacement seat heater and put it all back together. But I know for a fact the ventilated seats work, so there's a lot of different options as far as adjustments on there. They are memory. We'll put it forward a bit. Now the back, oh, there we go, decided to unlock. Nice. Back seats, pretty nice, also with the kind of slate gray inserts, the black leather. They're actually very comfortable. We'll go ahead and sit back here, and it's relatively spacious. I am over 6 feet tall, and right now with the front seat up a little bit, kind of ish like how I would be driving, I still have quite a bit of room. Now this does have, I want to say, the technology package, which is pretty awesome. So I have the navigation touchscreen radio up there that's incredibly dusty, and then these really nice fingerprinted back screens. You have some controls here that I haven't really messed too much with these, but I guess you can control them here, maybe. Yeah, power, you know, skip, all of that stuff. Some air vents, RCAs, 12-volt cigarette lighter, accessory plug, this little cubby that's full of dust. And then what's really cool, just like my Volvo XC60R design, this has rear heated seats. It's got this nice center console for the back, this armrest, 2 very nice cup holders, the center cubby. This is very nice. I mean, all these materials feel really nice. They're very soft. It's relatively spacious, and then it looks really awesome. I know you're not going to see it right now, but the moonroof is pretty darn cool. You have some storage there, some lights up top there. It's kind of delayed. And then you can put a little accessory across here, like a little coat rack of sorts. And then back here, well, back here is where there's sort of an issue. Yeah, if you don't catch my drift, the power liftgate doesn't work. Now that's a very common thing on these 94Xs, so it is stuck closed. No matter what I do, I cannot open it. There's the key fob that doesn't open it, and then also in the driver's side door, it's pretty cool that they even have the button right here, but that doesn't do anything. But you can change it to max lift. You can 3/4 it in case you're in a garage and you don't want it to open up completely and smack the top of the garage door or inside the garage, or just have it off completely. Why you'd want it off, I don't know. Maybe in this case because it doesn't work, but I have an idea of how we're gonna force this open to hopefully see why this thing isn't opening. So I was doing a little bit of exploring here. Lower rear seat. We'll go back here. Now I sort of cleaned out some of this. So I have one of these privacy covers. What's kind of interesting is once I get this back open, you can see exactly what this is. But it's actually a pretty cool system. It's like on a rail and you can adjust it and kind of secure groceries to it. But here's the back cargo area. A lot of plastic. Unfortunately missing a cover that I'll probably never be able to find, but if you have any leads on this cover, please drop a comment down below, let me know. But looking at this, there's no like pull or no button that I can open this, but even if there was a button, well, because this thing isn't working, well, it's not going to open. But I believe if I pop this little cargo light out, we can get access to the latch and force this thing open. So I think right here is the latch. Oh, jeez, this thing is heavy. Well, alright, the screwdriver's kind of stuck. Alright, so the back has been forced open. So you have a nice little grab handle. Here's the actual button that should operate, but doesn't do anything. And then here is that hydraulic cylinder. So you have two lines, one going in, one going out. And then if you look here and up here, yeah, that's pretty gross. So I'd venture to guess that this cylinder is blown out, and it takes like a special oil, and lifting it up, I mean, it still kind of goes back up the way it needs to go, but this one is like a typical lift support, so I think that's probably why. But I feel like there should be a lot more resistance when I'm opening this, and yeah, I think I need to order one of these. Now fortunately I can still get one of these for a reasonable price, so I'll order that. We'll do a video later on about replacing that. But here is this cargo area. So I have this privacy shade. We'll set that to the side. Set that to the side. I have this kind of universal rear mat. Got some crumbs of sorts. And then actually, let me go back to this real quick. This is kind of nifty. So you can actually move this around and push it down and lock it and adjust it. So that way you can kind of like have groceries here and push this up and keep pressure against it. And then you could, you know, lengthen it, shorten it, do whatever you need to do. So you can lock it in like that, have groceries or something here. So it's a pretty darn clever system, and it's metal, which is surprising from GM of this era where they love to use plastic. And even this little handle is metal, which is cool. So you lift this up, little storage cubby, looks like an original floor mat, just one of them. Awesome. Be nice to have a full set. And then just kind of like a foam insert here, which I don't think this pops up to reveal a tire, so that's awesome. There's probably no spare tire in here. Looks like we have some other cubbies. Okay, we'll go ahead, put that back. There's another little cubby here, which is Velcroed. Ooh, there's like RPO codes here, which is kind of cool. So what's nifty on these 94Xs, Aero or not, I believe the last 3 digits of the VIN dictate what model it is or what number it is. So this would be 186, potentially at 800. And then you can look at all these, and I'm sure there's a specific type of RPO code for the Aero model. I mean, for the navigation, technology package, all that stuff. So it's all just like relating to the build while this car is down the assembly line, and I would venture to guess that that is probably related to the paint. So that's pretty nifty and good to know where that is located. So a couple different cargo hooks. Seems like it's going to be well lit. The random cargo lights. And look at that, nice. We have a bunch of fuses and probably the sunroof drains that can leak down. Probably go into here, and then underneath all of this nonsense is a big tub, basically underneath here, which is where the sunroof drains run in behind here, go down there and can leak, and that's where the module is for the power liftgate. That's where there's like a big pump, and then where you fill it up at. So whenever I do replace this, I don't know if I'm gonna have to replace the lines and trail them down to the actual pump, but I know I'm gonna have to top that off of fluid. Oh, another little, looks like 12-volt accessory plug. And then, oh, that's just a latch for car seat. That's pretty cool. What do you think? Paisley likes it. Now underneath, this is an all-wheel drive 94X, so there is the rear Haldex differential underneath here. There is a little crustiness, but overall, not in too terrible a shape, given that this vehicle has lived its entire life in Ohio. And the exhaust seems decent. Judging by all this black, there's probably a small hole in the muffler, which is probably near impossible to get, but I'll have to do some research. Yeah, okay, it is actually dual exhaust, which is pretty cool. It's got coil springs, so no air suspension or anything like that. So that, my friends, wraps it up on the tour of my new to me 94X Aero project car. If you have any 94X parts, please drop a comment down below or shoot me an email at weakestofweeks@gmail.com. If you don't remember that, I'll put it in the description so you can just kind of copy and paste it. But I'm definitely looking for some 94X parts, maybe some 94X tidbits, some knowledge that you have if you've worked on one of these before, because quite frankly, I've only ever test drove one of these, which oddly enough, 1 year ago, last summer in 2023, I was very fortunate in my area that a dealership had one of these, and well, we just couldn't agree upon a price. So if you're wondering if this is the exact same 94X Aero that I test drove a year ago, it is not. I am just a very lucky idiot that there was apparently 2 of these very local to me, and one of which I was able to purchase pretty cheap, just needs some work. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Definitely consider hanging around, subscribing for the rest of this video series. Check out all the other Saab content and content I have on the old interwebs here on YouTube. And with that being said, I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you friends next time. Parker here says, if he catches this ball, you need to subscribe. Good job, buddy. Look, he caught it. Guess what? You should subscribe.